Hello everyone. Hello my friends on YouTube and my friends on Instagram. Hello everyone who is going to be watching live and if you're going to be watching this in recording. And I'll see whoever's joining. Hello to people who I know, and if I haven't met you before, I'm excited to hold a space for you. I'm here to talk about surviving the holidays and family drama and talking about political opinions that no one asked for, guilt tripping, and your family criticizing your parenting styles. I'll give people a couple of seconds to get together. And when you get here, just notice how you're arriving to the space and how it's feeling. And I've prepared a lot of fun things for you for today, and I'm actually really excited about this. So what I want to talk about first is about me, just in case if you've never heard of me or met me before and you've just seen this on Eventbrite or it came up on your feed. My name is Nadiya Stapinski. I'm a certified Martha Beck Wayfinder coach. I'm attachment-based parenting coach. I'm a certified stress resilience coach and also IFS informed coach. As for specifically family dynamics and boundary setting and things like that, I have a lot of personal experience with that as well, so I'm definitely ready to talk about that. I've spent a few months with my parents-in-law during the pandemic. I'm also Ukrainian, so since the war in Ukraine began, my mom has lived with us. So I understand how different generations work, how challenging it can be. We have very different dynamics in our family. We have people who like to guilt trip and have a hard time with kids having big feelings. We have people who have the opposite spectrum of just trying to appease any kind of big feelings as long as they go away. So I try to do things differently, and I understand how important it is to be able to set those boundaries without breaking the family. And I also understand that one of the things that has been coming up in my sessions with my clients is alarm about the political climate right now. And because a lot of families have people with different political opinions, and people don't want to break the family in favor of defending their opinion, and people have different reactions, so I'm here to talk about setting those boundaries with kindness. And I'm very curious to hear what bothers you personally the most in those family dynamics, whether it's guilt tripping or your family criticizing your parenting style, or whether it's specifically political related. So I'd be very curious to see who exactly bothers you most, and which ones of those dynamics are the trickiest for you. I've already discussed who I am, and if you'd like to, you can come back to this video later and see if that resonates with you. So what I have planned for you for today is we will talk about why those boundaries get pushed, why it triggers us so much, and why we have such different reactions. Because let's say someone criticizes your parenting and you freeze, you just don't know how to behave, or you tend to people please and avoid conflict at all costs, and you allow your parents or parents-in-law to push your parenting boundaries, push your kids around, you allow them to do things that you normally wouldn't because you feel alarmed about that. Or maybe vice versa, you lash out and you get very defensive easily or very frustrated and you don't understand why that dynamic is happening. So we will cover all of those things, we'll talk about them, then we'll also do a guided meditation to come in touch with the parts of us that get triggered in those moments, to see how it can help us, because I'm going to share some scripts and specific words you can use in those moments that can help you set boundaries with kindness. But what truly matters the most about those situations is not about specifically what you say, but how you feel inside, how you feel in your body. Because you can joke it off, or you can just set your boundary, but people sense if you don't feel strong enough, if you feel alarmed inside, and very often those boundaries won't be heard and won't be respected. So what we feel inside, how we feel in our body in those moments matters much more than the specific scripts I'm going to share with you, but no matter, I will still share the scripts as well. We're also going to touch base on shadow work, on the parts that bother us in other people For example, if you're a people pleaser, you might be frustrated with someone who tends to lash out. So we'll touch base on why that happens and how that is connected as well. And I'll also mention nonviolent communication. So hang in with me. I think it's going to be very exciting. And well, I guess let's jump into it. So the first thing I want to say is basically validate your feelings, because it can be very challenging to feel different from your family. It can be challenging to feel like you don't belong because your parents-in-law, your even brothers and sisters, they don't share your parenting style, they don't share your political opinions, all of the above, right? When they have a hard time with your kids' big feelings, when you're really working hard to make space for those. This is very tricky, and it's very normal to feel anger, frustration, to feel sadness about it, but simultaneously also have this feeling of wanting to belong, to want to be a part of it, and for them to hear you, to be heard and seen. So you're not alone in this. Many of us are facing that. It's particularly noticeable in the millennial generation, where millennial generation is the one that has been trying to break those generational patterns to make things so much better emotionally and psychologically for their kids, while reparenting in ourselves, changing those dynamics for ourselves, because without doing that, we know we can't fully do it for our kids. And also trying to set kind boundaries with our parents, our grandparents, our parents-in-law, but keep the relationships going. So it is truly challenging. The thing is that it's not our job to change who our parents are and to change who our parents-in-law are. And we cannot. They grew up differently. They grew up in a completely different world, and we know that. And often enough, they are shame-based, guilt-based, fear-based. Those are the tactics that were used with them. And that's the only thing that they know. And it can be tricky, and we can try and explain why we want things done differently, right? But very few of them, unfortunately, will hear that. And if they do, if yours do, that's actually fantastic news for you. But likely you're here if they do not hear that. And the other thing I wanted to mention here is that one thing we're not really going to delve deeper into is the situations where you have to set firm boundaries, where we're talking about narcissistic abuse, where we're talking about really toxic communication in the families, for example, when you're never feeling heard and seen. It's a constant criticizing and negative approach to everything, when you feel used in those relationships. And we're not going to talk about those things because they're deep, and likely if you are in those relationships, you need coaching, you need therapy. And you can look up the specific things, like specific behaviors of in toxic relationships and narcissistic relationships, but likely you need additional guidance than in our workshop. So in this case, we're going to talk about the cases where we can set boundaries with love and kindness. And so what bothers us in the majority of cases, right, is that the things that grandparents tell our children affects them, and they tend to internalize them. For example, if your mom or mother-in-law says things like, you have to finish your plate, or vice versa, makes body comments, obviously you're alarmed that it's going to affect your child when you're not doing those things in your family. And I know that well personally, because fun story, my grandparents used to teach me that if I don't finish my plate, I will never get married. By the way, I did. And I still don't finish my plates fully, but it did have an effect on me. And I actually, as an adult, had to learn to not finish every single item on my plate. And I did internalize those messages. So it is important to us to make sure that we defend our children. And all we can do in those cases, right? We can just firmly set boundaries. If you've seen one of my latest reels lately, right? You can say things like, thank you. I understand that you want to treat her, but this is what works for our family. She's learning to listen to her body. Or we don't make body image comments in our family. Thank you. I appreciate your concern, but this is just not what works for us. And very likely your parents or parents-in-law will feel triggered about it, because that's not how they grew up. They feel like they're doing good. They're saying those things out of concern. They're saying those things out of their own alarm. out of their own unmet needs. And that's important to keep in mind, because when we remember that, it helps us not lash out. It helps us, especially if you're the type that tends to get more frustrated and defensive in those moments. And even when you tend to, let's say, freeze or people please, it also helps you. It also helps you stand up for yourself and stand up for your child, because you understand that your that grandparent is saying that out of their own alarm, their own insecurity, their own inner child hurt. They're not saying it out of mature adults. So this way you can feel stronger. You can feel more confident and more comfortable standing up to them as well. And so now let's, oh, and the other thing, I'm sorry, that I forgot to mention was that the other thing is that you can do is talk to your kids afterwards. You talk to your kids later and you explain that grandma learned those things in a different time, that that's what they believed. We don't believe this. And it's okay for you to not finish your plate, for example. And if you did lash out, if you did get very defensive, it's important to repair those moments and touch base with your kids about those moments as well, because when they saw you, they are also internalizing that. They're internalizing that it's okay to lash out when you feel frustrated. And we don't want that, right? So we can talk to them about that later and say, yes, that wasn't okay. My reaction wasn't okay. And I'm working on it. And then you move on. So, and the next thing I wanted to do is to dive into why we feel triggered in those moments, and specific types of triggers that different people can have in different moments and how they develop. So one of the biggest reasons that we struggle with boundaries, especially with our family, with parents and grandparents and parents-in-law, is in the moment, we're not responding as adults. We might feel like you can be 35, 45, it doesn't matter. We're just responding from an old survival strategy that we internalized as a child. And in the moment, we feel internally, you feel like a child in those moments when you felt hurt, when you felt unheard, when your needs were not met. And this is where it happens. So we call it 4 Fs. There are different types of responses that happen with different people. 4 ways children adapt for when safety or connection feel threatened. And the first one is fight. So those are the people when I say that we lash out or we get super defensive. So you get defensive, you get sharp, you get angry, you get frustrated, but what you feel inside is, I won't let you tell me how to parent. You don't know. I know better. Why it happens is because this is the defense mechanism that you learned as a child and you've internalized, and that was the only way to defend yourself. The type of defense number 2 is called flight, and what you feel inside is, if I disappear, this will stop. But what happens is you shut down, you avoid, you withdraw, you can literally leave the dinner table, things like that. The defense type number 3 is called freeze. And that happens to people when they just feel like they can't speak, as if you lose your words, you almost pretend like you don't exist. And what happens inside is, I don't know what to do, I just want it to stop. And again, this is just a learned response from your childhood. And the last one that is less known, but is simultaneously very common, is called fawn response. And that's the typical people pleaser response, as I've been mentioning before. So you tend to, when you feel that conflict arises, all you want to do is just avoid that conflict. And you agree, you appease, you maybe over-explain, or you let them have their way, right? Like, it's okay, like, while we're at, like Nana and Grandpa's house, they can have all the cookies, all the cakes that they want, even though at home I never let them have any of that, for example, right? But just because I don't want to get into that conflict situation. But what you've learned as a child in those cases, if that's your normal, typical response, is that if I make you happy, I'll feel safe. And so when your mom comments on your parenting, or your dad dismisses your child's feelings, or your mother-in-law guilt trips you, or your parents like bring up politics in a shaming way, your adult brain just can't stay calm, because it triggers those moments of not feeling safe as a child. And what your inner child feels is like, uh-oh, I'm in trouble again. And I need to keep peace, or I need to defend myself, or they won't accept me. And again, what I mentioned before, I don't belong. And it's very important for us as species to feel the belonging to a group. So that's where this gets very challenging. That's why a big part of us really wants to feel heard, and we want to be on the same page about politics, about parenting styles and things like that. So, but in a triggering moment, your emotional self may be 4, 5, 6 years old. And the point that I really, really want you to hear here is that everything within us was meant to serve us. So these parts, even if they don't help us in the moment, they don't do it in the most logical way, but these lashing out parts, freezing, people pleasing parts, they were meant to serve us. They were meant to help us. But we understand we grew up and things changed, and we are not in danger anymore. And this is where, if we help our inner child feel safe, we help those parts relax, you likely won't have to respond in the same way. You can hear, let's say, different political opinion, even in the present very challenging political climate when the country is so divided and it's really so hard to be on the same page. But you can hear it without feeling like you're agreeing with it, amplifying it. You can just hear it and kindly disagree. Or you can hear someone criticize your parenting style and you can still disagree. You can say, yes, I understand. I hear that this is very important for you, even when they tell you, but I raised you like that and you turned out fine, and you know you're not fine. Maybe you've been in therapy for 5 years, or like you understand that you have those moments when you don't feel fine and you've been working so hard on making it better for your kid, but you don't have to tell them all of that, or you don't have to feel so guilty or so frustrated or like this shame. You can just say, yes, I hear that this is important to you, but different things work for us. Again, only when things change inside. So what I want to do here is I want to talk to you about, or I want to do the guided meditation that we talked about, because this is the main thing of this workshop, and this is what can actually bring you to this peaceful inside first. I want you to do this guided meditation to your childhood home, but if you have big T trauma, please take care of yourself first. You can listen, but don't close your eyes. Don't necessarily go into it, because you know that about yourself, and you should take care of yourself first. And now, just one moment, let me do some gentle music to help us through it. So take a moment to close your eyes. Take a nice deep breath in through your nose. Fill your lungs, fill your belly with the oxygen, and exhale any stress, exhale any negativity that you've been carrying. Inhale and exhale everything that's no longer serving you. Connect with your heart space. Feel the worth, your self-worth around your heart, your chest. Feeling what's safe in your body right now. Letting yourself focus on safety. Letting it expand in your awareness. Breathing into it, feeling nourished. Feeling protected. Feeling held. And set an intention. Intentions are truly powerful. What is it that you want to experience today? Maybe it's breaking free from what's not longer serving you with grace. Maybe it's feeling your strength, feeling peaceful, breathing into that heart space, and knowing you can always come back here whenever you are, whatever you feel, when you need this. And now when you're ready, imagine yourself in your childhood home when you were 5, 6, or younger. See yourself and just notice What does it feel like to be there? What does it smell like? What does it look like? Be there and notice it. Now let a situation come up when you felt like your needs were not met, your big feelings were not respected. Maybe a situation when it wasn't okay for you to speak up or hold a different opinion. Let it unfold. I want you to see those caregivers, whoever it was, that made you feel unsafe. See, what did you learn from them about you? What did you learn about the world? Now imagine yourself as you are right now, grown up and strong, walking into that room. And see that child there, struggling for whatever reason, and send them some energy, some love. Hold space for them. Can you sit on their level? See what they want. Maybe they need a hug. Tell them that I am your future you. I have left you here, but now I'm here to bring you back. Just be gentle. Tell your child, you're safe now. I'm here. Tell him or her that you don't have to earn love by agreeing, by pleasing, by staying quiet, by whatever it is that they choose to do. Now, hold a child's hand and walk them away. Take them to a safe space of your choosing. Maybe it's a little beautiful building somewhere in the mountains, or an A-frame in the woods. Or maybe just if your home right now is safe, just bring them into your home, into your family. Show them how you turned out, what it is right now. Now, place your hand on your heart. Feel that protection expanding to your adult self, to the parent you are right now, both for your inner child and your actual children. If your inner child wants something else from you right now, maybe a hug, or they just need a little bit of your presence, just stay with them for another second. Be there with them. And keep breathing. Now you can gently open your eyes. Come back to your present moment. If it works for you, you can put your hands on the opposite shoulder and do a little bit of this tapping. This actually helps you process the emotions that might have come up. Just do it gently for a little bit. And then look around, find one large object around you. Notice it, what color it is. Then find one smaller object around you. Notice what shape or color it is. Welcome back. How are you feeling? I'm looking at some of your comments here. I hope this was helpful. I hope this brought some safety and feeling of security to you. This is the feeling we're looking for when we're trying to stand up for ourselves or for our kids. This peace, this security, this energy is what we're looking for when we're trying to set boundaries. This is when we will be heard. when you can set them kindly and people will still respond to them no matter what. By the way, one of the things that you can do for your child, for your inner child, leading up to potential family drama, or hopefully no drama after this workshop, and into the holidays, is you can connect with your inner child, with that child that you just took away from that space for just 3 to 5 minutes a day in these days and weeks coming up. And by the way, it's great to do not just because of the holidays or potential family drama. It's just great for us in general to give them space, to give that part, that kind of wounded part, some space and see what they want. They might actually ask you for something. You might feel like you really want a piece of chocolate or hot cocoa, or you just want to dance around, and try to find time and space to do this. Because this finding space, being a good parent for yourself, right? Something that you would do for your actual child, doing it for yourself, is what truly helps us feel nourished, feel happier, and really makes our life so much brighter and so much better in so many ways. So now let's move on to the next phase. And let me know in comments if you have any questions, by the way. But the next thing I wanted to touch base on was those common situations and scenarios that we can actually talk about responding and specific scripts. So one of the situations that I hear my clients say a lot, right, is when parents-in-law or parents comment on your behavior, on your parenting, with phrases like, "You're too sensitive with your kids." Or, for example, "We never did that to you and you turned out just right," right? Those are the two big ones. And the most important thing to understand is the first thing that they need and they want is to be validated. It's not about you actually changing your parenting style. It's about they're trying to avoid feeling that they've done things wrong. So if you want your response to be heard, if you actually want to set that boundary and you want it to be heard, the first thing that you do is you validate it, which means that you say, "I hear you," or "That's true." But then you say, "But we're doing what works for our family. We're just trying to do what works for my child." Or, "We're trying something a bit different. Everyone wants the best for their kids. And I know you did, Mom. You wanted better. You wanted better for me, but I'm trying something a little bit different." Another situation that I know often comes up is things like, "Just one more cookie," or, like cake, right? Like chocolate cake before bed, that a lot of people are not okay with, right? And one of the approaches that you can take is, again, validating, where you say, "I know you love treating them," because this is what it is about. It's about feeling like a good grandparent. It's about feeling that they're doing something for their grandkids. "I know you love to treat them. I know you really want that, but let's save it for after dinner if we're talking about cookies, or let's save it for tomorrow morning." But don't do that. And you can literally continue that phrase on repeat and with slight variations. And interestingly, often enough, that works. Or if they tell you that you're overreacting about your responses, right? Maybe you do get frustrated about those comments, and then the script you can use is, "You might see it differently, and that's okay, but this is what feels right to me." And when you feel calm inside, you're much more likely to be heard. Another interesting phrase that I've been using with my client, and I know that truly works, is when you ask your parents a question, especially when it comes to your parents questioning your parenting style. And what you can do is you can ask them, "Mom or Dad, you raised me, and are you happy with how I turned out?" And let's say they say, "Yes, I am." And you can say, "Well, then please give me the grace of raising my kids. If you're happy how I turned out, you trust me, you believe in me, and I know I can do a good job. I'm doing my best." Or if they tell you, "No, I'm not," and then you can say that, "Well, so let me try something different this time around." So whatever their response is, you have a response to their response, and it works both ways. Another framework that you can apply to these situations is from Marshall Rosenberg's Nonviolent Communication Approach. By the way, I think that this book, Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg, I highly recommend it. I think any person, parent, non-parent, any person in the world should read it because that approach truly works. And he talks about some amazing scenarios with very unlikely situations of like burglaries and whatnot, and people being talked out of crazy decisions and moments. It really works, and I really highly recommend it. So what we do here is when you notice that you're activated but not overwhelmed. It doesn't work when you're having big feelings, right? You can try to do that. So the first step is the observation. What actually happened? Not the story, not your not the interpretation, but what actually happened. Let's say your mom is trying to push your child to finish their meal, right? And said like finish the plate. We have to clean the plate, and you're just observing it, right? Like you really want her to finish the food. Stage 2 is the feeling you're having. So what emotion comes up for you in that moment? In some cases, we're not going to talk about frustration, right? But we can, because we know that it's not going to be taken lightly. But in other cases, we can literally say that, like, it makes me feel frustrated because I've been working hard on letting my kids listen to their bodies. Something like that. Or you can just miss that part, but move on to, if you feel like it's not going to be heard, and you can move on to the stage 3, which is need. What important need of yours wasn't met? So this is the important need here. We really need to learn to listen to our bodies, and this is what they're learning right now. And then it's a request. What is one small doable thing that they can do right now? So maybe let's let them finish it. And let's say your child didn't eat at all, and then you won't be comfortable giving them dessert after that. You'll deal with that, right? But the request is, please let them listen to their bodies. And it really applies to so many situations, that framework of observation, feeling, need, and request. And it might sound simple, but what it requires, it requires your body to feel safe enough to speak honestly before we actually try it. So before you try nonviolent communication, check inward. Do I feel a bit more relaxed than tense? Is my breath low and steady right now? And do I feel like an adult right now, not a child bracing for an attack? This is where this works the best. And one more thing that I mentioned at the beginning I was going to talk to you about is shadow work. When people trigger each other, when, for example, like a people pleaser and someone who lashes out, this is often because each carries a part that the other one has disowned. So if you tend to lash out and get frustrated, you likely might be triggered and frustrated with the person who just tries to avoid conflict or who freezes in those moments, right? You just might feel like, why are they doing it? Why won't they just be direct and express their opinion? And a people pleaser, vice versa, might judge the person who lashes out because they were not allowed to be loud as a child. And someone who lashes out might feel irritated because they were punished for being too much or too needy, and now they don't have like this inner permission to, let's say, avoid conflict in some cases, right? And in other words, the very things that we judge in others are often the things that we were not allowed to be, and we, for some reason, do not allow ourselves. And this is where the trigger actually comes in. So what you can do in that moment is notice that judgment. It's very important, like it's a very important crumble on your way to understand the triggers, your own personality, like subparts that get triggered, and how you can work with them. So you notice that judgment, you notice the part of you that reacts in that moment, and then you give it space instead of pushing it away. You understand that, as I mentioned before our meditation, that everything is there to serve us. So this is also there to serve your needs. This defense is there to serve your needs, to protect you, to make you feel safer. And when we give it space, when we don't fight it, is when we actually are able to relax then we don't judge that other person, and we're also less likely to judge ourselves as well. And you can ask gently, is there a younger part in me that learned that this behavior wasn't safe? And you don't have to fix it, you just need to notice it. And with time, when we allow it space, it's much more likely to move on and to take on a different job that isn't as challenging and frustrating. I think we've touched base on the majority of those topics. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments. I will have a deeper, a few hour long workshop on December 13th to talk about more specifics, to do an art therapy exercise, to actually work in groups, to make sure that we can practice saying those phrases and staying calm. And also that will cover some internal family system work. So to work with those people pleasing parts, with those lashing out parts, things like that. So if you're interested, please leave a comment, whether you're on YouTube or if you're on Instagram, please leave a comment workshop. And once the link is available, I will send it to you. I would appreciate any comments or any feedback that you might send my way for this workshop and how it worked out for you. Or if you have any alarming things or concerns about the potential family drama to happen, I would really love to hear your feedback, and so that I could implement it in the workshop on December 13th. Thank you very much for coming and joining us today and listening. I hope it was helpful for all of you.